what's going to happen there. So my machine's all set up as an embroidery machine tonight. So we're going to do some fun stitching out on with an embroidery that I have all set up, which will be really good because that one's going to be fun to look at. And I love seeing things stitch out. It's always really Aha! Sound issues. Thank you. That was a me thing, not a software thing. Forgot to turn the sound on. That's entirely on me. So, to reiterate, for those when I didn't have sound, it's no way embarrassing at all. But this is what happens when we learn new things. And I often tell my beginner sewers that sometimes things are going to be terrible and then they get better. So hopefully this is the terrible stage and we will get better and it will be okay. So tonight I'm trying to go live on YouTube and Twitch and maybe TikTok, but TikTok may not work because of camera issues. So I'm not so worried if that one doesn't work. It does say it is working, but who knows? What I am trying to do though is test out lots of things with the software that I use because I've been having some problems. I have also been working to now stream on Twitch as well. So Twitch, as many of you may know, is being mostly used by gamers to do lots of streaming things. Because I already stream to YouTube, I thought, hey, I could go to Twitch at the same time if the software all works. So that would be good. So I am also testing that. If anyone is a Twitcher, you can find me there as Measure Twice, Cut Once Sewing. Like I said, I will also be on YouTube. So YouTube is my main goal for this one because it ties in with the other ones that are already there. So hopefully that is working as well. All right, I'm just going to do a little bit more technical stuff here on the background. How's everyone been? Have you been able to do lots of sewing and fun, exciting things like that? Yay, I've got some people on TikTok as well. So hopefully that's working. Okay, so looks like TikTok is going to jump in and out a little bit. So, you know, we'll see what happens there. I'm just going to see if that monitor works. So if you've been watching from the beginning, there's been some sound issues. I'm trying to sort everything out and get it started. My plan is that eventually I'll be sewing and showing you lots of things. But one of the things I wanted to show you tonight is some stitching out of an embroidery I've been going to do. So as many of you know, I love machine embroidery and it is one of my day jobs. So I work with Wilcom, who provide the software, who sell the software to do machine embroidery. I personally use Hatch. I owned Hatch before I worked there. I love it. It is one of the fantastic ways to actually work on that. Thank you so much to So Organized Style, who has now told me that they can check it out on each one of my channels. Thank you so much, Maria. You are awesome. We must catch up when you're back from holidays. So this is what we're going to be working on today. This is Buddy the Budgerigar. It is for a friend. It's for their mum actually. So they had given me a vector drawing, and I had turned I digitized the drawing into an embroidery, and then we did a little test stitch. So when I did the little test stitch, there's a couple of things that I wanted to fix up. Sometimes it's just in the process of the way it is stitching out. I wanted to clean that process up a little bit, and there's a few little things that I just wanted to make a bit clearer. So he's a little bit tricky to see because I just did him on a test one. So I always do it on a test stitch out because that's how you know when things are working. So I am now going to take Buddy out of the frame and use some of the backing again. So for those of you who don't know how machine embroidery works, it is very fun because you can basically turn any drawing, artwork, image, lettering into an embroidery file, which gives you endless possibilities when, like myself, you are also a garment sewer, because it means you can do lots of fun things. It also means you get to make fun gifts with your friends' animals on it as well, which, you know, to be fair, is half the fun of crazy things as well. All right, so what I've got here is I have a plain cotton tea towel. I bulk bought a whole bunch of these forever ago. They are still going strong, and I use them to stitch out things to give away. I'm also using my magnetic hoop today because it's a little bit easier to hoop up. It's a little bit easier on my hands. If anyone is making the investment into getting yourself an embroidery machine, do look at getting magnetic hoops because your hands will thank you so much. Okay. And what's everyone else up to tonight? I can see lots of things happening. On the screens, people are chatting away, doing some sewing, getting into some things. Okay. Well, that was a super fast way to hoop up. So I have my tea towel all hooped up. I've just gone for a lower corner placement, and I have some backing, some stabilizer on the back. I'm going to swap to my other camera, and we're going to start stitching out, so you'll be able to see it through. Okay. All right, so camera 2, and we're going to go start stitching. I'll be there in a sec. So obviously my machine is just a single tool machine. I've already preloaded the design in over here. I'm trying to see if you can see that. Yes, you can. So I've already preloaded it in here, and I have threaded up to start with. So now all that's left to do is to lower my presser foot and push go. Now just because I can, it's a little bit bright, so what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to move the camera angle. Apologies if it gets a bit fuzzy for you for a second. That LED light on my machine is so bright, so that's causing this big circle. Hopefully you'll start to see the stitching in there in a moment. I'm just cleaning up the initial beginning stitches before I keep going again. Tricky to see because obviously it's a pale yellow on a white, and then that LED light is going super crazy for that. Let me check out and see if I can change some color tones for you there. Not really. That might be better for us. We can do a little bit of the zoom, it'll help us out a little bit. So it's looking a little pale over there with that stitch out. And this is one of those things that I want to show you so much stuff happening, but it's always, I've got to test it live and sometimes things go wrong. So that's always a little bit tricky to get it happening. So, but what's actually happening, you can start to see the stitches a little bit more, and I've had to like zoom in and go for a slightly different angle. Unfortunately, that circle color there is, I can't change that because that is just the LED light from my machine, and I can't turn off the LED without turning off my machine. So hopefully as we go through the different colors tonight whilst we're stitching, that will work out a bit better for you all there. So hey to everyone who has been joining the stream, thanks so much. It is great to see you all here. Lots of different people jumping in and asking questions, which is always great. As I said earlier, in case you missed it, for all of my digitizing, I use Hatch, and that's, for me, the best solution because it doesn't cost a fortune, which is great, and it works really well with my machine. So I have a single needle machine. At other jobs that I work, I also have multiple multi-needle machines to play with as well. So I get to have a nice combination of both without having to have the expense of a big multi-needle at my house, which is fun. But I can do heaps with my single needle, and I am restricted by hoop size here as well. So even with a tiny hoop size, it doesn't matter. You just got to be more inventive about things, which I kind of love that as well. So it looks like TikTok is working as well as Twitch and YouTube, which I've got to say is a little bit exciting that it's actually working, because I was so worried that none of it was going to work at all, and that it was all going to fall into a big heap. And hey, it still might, but at least we can give it a little bit of a try and see how it all works. All right, let's double check on our embroidery and see how we're going. So my hoop is actually a 10 by 10 size, so 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, or 4 inches by 4 inches if you're in inches. And what I've done is I've made Buddy the budgerigar a bit smaller than that, because obviously you don't want your machine to hit your hoop in any way. So I've done that. Hang on one sec. We're going to get some technical help. Hang on one moment. Okay, so my boyfriend has just walked in and has given me a piece of paper with some blue tack and a little note that says to cover the LED, which quite frankly is genius. So I am going to go try that and see if that helps us out. I'm trying to figure out where it is. Aha! Hopefully this will actually work, because that would be quite fun, that we have just jury-rigged this thing up and made it work. If anyone out there has a 3D printer and can make me a little cover for my LED light, let me know, that would be awesome. Ish. Actually, I'm standing somewhere where I have nothing but fabric scissors near me, and I'm not cutting paper with fabric scissors. No, it doesn't work. Oh. We tried. It doesn't quite work. But it's a great idea to try for next time, I think. I'll just have to figure out how. Maybe I can just cover with blue tack for tonight. That kind of works. Okay, cool. Nice, okay. Now, this is definitely not something I would recommend you do to your machine, but for what we're doing tonight, it is a handy thing to do. One other thing I'm going to show, I'm just going to move the camera angle a little bit here.
what I have here is I have my little lineup of buddy colours. So whenever I'm embroidering and I'm on my single needle, I actually line them all up in chronological order. Because then, particularly when you're working on tonal things, you get all of your tones correct because you know which one's coming in what order. So if you're new to embroidery and you're trying to figure that out, that's a great way to get yourself started. Alright. Okay, let's see how we go here. Alright, blue tack over the cover makes it slightly easier to get into the needle thread up. And if anyone is looking for an embroidery machine, honestly, that needle threader sold me. It's so good. Alright. So I've just literally let it do a stitch. Now I'm going to cut this end off. Some machines automatically do trims for you, but not all. Okay. No LED, a little bit of a shadow, but at least you can see what's stitching out. So now we're just doing the next colour. It's up here his head, so we can check out and see what that's actually happening there. If anyone is on TikTok, don't forget you can actually share the live and get more people to follow. So if you're watching and you're like, hey, I really like this, I know someone else is into machine embroidery, don't forget you can actually share it so that your friends can check it out as well. So do that while you're watching away.
So it looks like everything is actually working, and I can see people jumping in and out of watching in different streams, which is really fun.
As each colour finishes off, your machine just makes a little noise, and then I swap to the next colour. When I digitised this and I did the test, the first one I actually did, I didn't group by colour correctly, and I had to change so many more times. So when I went back to edit, I actually edited it so that the colours ran in a more logical progression. To not only make the digitising and embroidery look good, but also to actually make the threading of the machine easier, so I didn't have to keep threading every 3 seconds, which is a good way to do it if you can. And sometimes that takes like a little bit of a learning curve when you first start digitising, but in Hatch it was super easy just to reorganise that around. Okay. You wouldn't think that one piece of blue tack would make the threading of your machine so different, but it really does. Go that way. Okay. So apart from doing lots of machine embroidery, I have been doing tons of knitting lately, which I am planning to share on another, I don't know if I'll do it as a stream or whether I will do it as an edited YouTube clip, but I'll figure out some way of showing it because it's been quite fun. I'm still knitting socks as much as possible. So for those of you who don't know the story, I started knitting socks because they were the last things I had to buy because I can make everything else clothing-wise. So socks are the last things I had to buy. So I learnt to knit so I could make socks. And I had a very proud moment like a fortnight ago where I actually was, except for my shoes, head to toe in things that I had made, which was very exciting. For anyone who's just starting out with your sewing, it takes a while to get there to that point. So don't stress if you're like, hey, I'm a long way from that. That's okay. You don't have to be there. I've been sewing for a long time, so it definitely helps. Okay, so this time I'm going to show you something different. I'm going to hang on to this thread. I'm just going to push go. And because I'm still hanging on to it, I can put it under a little bit of tension. I've got my embroidery scissors here, and I can click in. The bent embroidery scissors, totally worth the investment. tiny little bit at the top of the bunch's beak at the moment, and then we're going to jump down and we're going to do the feet. So my machine is set so that it doesn't have the automatic trims, as many of the single needles don't. So I'm just going to let him stitch the feet, and then we're actually going to trim that big long jump of thread afterwards. Now that that colour has finished, what you can see is this big long jump of thread here. So I can actually slide my scissors right in underneath that. I'm going to trim there, and I'm going to trim there. If I was going to be doing orange in lots more places, I would actually trim it a fair few more times, or trim it as it jumps between things. That way, in case your embroidery stitches go over it, you don't end up with it getting tangled and looking super messy. So sometimes you really do have to just stand there and watch your machine stitch out, which is not always the most efficient use of time, but it does make your embroidery look great. Yeah, like I said, any 3D printers out there, you want to make me a little cover? That would be awesome. Okay. Does anyone have any machine embroidery questions as I'm stitching out? If not, I can just keep talking you through what I'm doing. So I've just swapped through, I'm actually using a matte, just regular Rasant thread for this section, because I'm picking up like the cream edges of feathers and then these long tailed feathers. So it's going to jump about a little bit, so I'm just going to let it sort of do its thing.
So Buddy's going to be stitching out for a little bit. So I thought I might talk to you a little bit about the different kinds of thread that I've been using. So mostly I use embroidery thread, which is, in my case, I'm using one which is a little bit with a satin finish. So it's a little bit shiny, but not like a metallic. And it's also a slightly different weight to regular garment sewing thread. Then in the bobbin, you have bobbin fill, which is a different weight again, and that's a really important thing to actually getting your machine to run nice and smoothly, to actually make sure you've got those correct weights. At the moment, I've actually just put in Rasant, which I use all the time for garment sewing, because I wanted a different texture and a different colour, and I didn't have that kind of right colour cream. So I've just dropped in a Rasant, and it will stitch out fine, and that will work. And you can use regular thread. You do just have to watch how fine some of your embroidery gets and some of your kind of connecting sections, so you don't get anything too thick. So when things layer up on top of each other, you just got to kind of think that through a little bit. But let's check him out and see what's happening. So I've deliberately let some of the sections have quite wide satin stitches so that they look more like feathers. And sometimes I've added an auto split in there. And so with the auto split, what it will do is, if the distance is, say, 3 centimeters, it's going to split that up so that it comes into smaller segments. But luckily, it also really looks quite feathery in the direction that I have made it work for that. So that works out really well. And you can see his tail coming in now. Thank you so much to the Englisher, as I refer to my boyfriend, for that genius hack with the glue tack. That has really worked so well, and you're actually being able to see the stitch out. So I think I will be checking that out. So hey, I can see a few more people on TikTok. I hope that it is all working for you. Apologies that you do have to turn your phone sideways for this one, but that is the downside of going to multiple streams at once, that you do have to turn it sideways for that little section. So if anyone is looking to get a single needle embroidery machine, you can totally make it work. Some things get a little trickier and you have to be quite inventive with some of your hooping up. Like if you want to do caps it's really difficult if you want to do structured caps, but if you wanted to do flat caps, you can do it. It is harder though. And some things, like if I'm doing bags and things like that, sometimes that's a little bit harder to hoop up. Because I can sew though, I will quite often just like pull open the seam and do it flat and then sew it back up again. So do sort of think about what kind of machining you want to do with what type of embroidery you want to do. So that was Buddy's tail being stitched out there, so he's stitching away really well with that one. And hey to Twitch people, I can see a few people jumping up and down there, so that's really fun. In my little chat, the little thing goes ding when someone jumps in, so I can see that, so that's fun. Alright. So I explained this at the beginning, but for anyone who's just jumped in, I am not only stitching out things tonight, but I'm also testing a whole bunch of technical things which I've been having problems with in terms of streaming. If I can get the technical things sorted out, I'm going to be streaming lots more, and I will be showing a lot more of my regular garment sewing, as well as some embroidery things and a whole bunch of other things. So if you've got requests, either drop them in the chat, or you can always send me a message as well and be like, hey, I really want to know about this. So that is really cool if you're there. I can see some names which I think might be people I'm currently teaching sewing. So hi, if I have recognized your name correctly. So if you were in Sydney, I also teach sewing at Bobbin and Ink. It's really fun. I love teaching there, and I teach a whole bunch of different classes. So if you're interested in learning sewing, whether you're a beginner or looking for an advanced class, check that out. That's always a great place to come and see things. Okay. Well, that's all looking good, so I think I might jump up and go check out what's happening with Buddy again.
Oh, that was handy. So that was all of the cream was stitched out. You can't see this section as much because of the lighting, but this is kind of like a nice feathery type of section. We've only got 2 more colours to go, so we're pretty close to the end, which is nice. I'm just using the, for my embroidery thread, I almost always use Brother embroidery thread here at home. I find it just is super smooth on my machine, which is also a Brother. But also it fits really well in the drawer, and I don't need a huge amount of space, because space is a premium when you are crafty and you need to fit in lots of things and not take over the whole place.
Because I'm now sort of going over some layers of things, the machine starts to get a little bit noisier. And mostly that's just because of layering, really. It just happens when it just gets a bit noisier, and things actually happen up with that as well. Looks like the Twitch stream might have dropped out, so apologies if anyone is on Twitch and the stream has dropped. It looks like it's dropped off from the main camera, so I'm just going to see if I quickly swap back. Sorry, I'm actually standing at the desk to try and read all of these things. Nope, still out. Okay, well, you know, these things happen, so that will be fine. We'll work that out. All right, let's do the last colour for Buddy.
What I can see here is I just have one jump in my cream thread, so I'm just going to trim that one. My last white colour I'm using is actually a Goodwin
embroidery thread. But it's this kind of...
it looks black, but it's actually this kind of like greeny black. And when I was getting my friend to choose their buddy colours, they were like, no, that's the perfect colour, because his apparently is a bit greeny black and not black. So that's where having different brands of thread sometimes comes in handy, because you just get that little bit of extra tonal difference. It's unthreaded. So I can actually see that my machine has unthreaded. I'm just going to zoom back out so you can see more of my machine for a sec. Okay, so I can tell my needle has unthreaded, so I have a little button up here which I can push, which lifts up my needle, and then I'm just going to rethread from the top again because it makes it easier. When you're rethreading through your embroidery, always make sure your presser foot is up, because you'll need all the tension discs open to get through that. I'm not sure if you can see my screen. I'm just going to move it back. Hopefully you can see this. So over here I have a little picture of a needle and a plus minus symbol. So I am going to go back 10 stitches, and then I'm going to go to plus one. Nope, I've got to keep going because I think I'm on another colour still. Okay, so I'm now back, so I can just do the black section, which is all I want. Now this bit's going to be a little bit noisier because I'm actually asking the machine to do lots of sort of small pieces. And whenever it does lots of smaller kind of pieces, sometimes it just gets a little bit noisier because it's trying to do lots of stitches. But it still sounds like it's stitching. It's when it starts making clunky sounds that it gets really, you're like, oh, what's going on? Something's happening. Glad that moved. That was not the greatest noises. Some of those noises is just where it's gone over a few too many threads at the one time. So just keeping an eye on it, making sure it's all working. And I can just trim out those long jumps later on. So those will just be long ones, so I can just do that later. That's easy. Okay, so we are all done. I'm just going to take it out from the machine. out. So I'm just going to trim up some of these extra parts. Cool. So that's what Buddy looks like. Alright, I'm going to head back to the other screen.
For everyone who has hung around to the end, thank you so much. For everyone who's left a comment, that's amazing. You've really helped me figure out some of these issues that we've been having. Fingers crossed, we're pretty much close to the end of it. But we also have a little stitch out of Buddy, which is really fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of the hoop and then I'm going to trim off the backing. That's not so exciting, so I'm not going to worry about that. And I might trim up a few more of these kind of little black ones where there's little tiny jumps I might get in there and just trim those out. But hopefully it has all worked, and when I go check it all out afterwards, it's going to be great, and hopefully we can do some more streams and I will see you all again. Thanks so much for coming.